Is this on? Adjust that a little bit. All right. How are we all doing today? Better than John, right? Well, it's good to be back. I didn't think I'd be back so soon, but John, I guess, had a plan, so I don't want to tease him too much because John's my friend. But today, we'll be talking about hardship and dealing with hardship, what that looks like. And before we get into that, I'd just like to pray real quick because I want to make sure that when I'm up here talking to you guys this morning, you're not hearing me, you're hearing the Lord. So, Lord, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. Thank you for your love, your kindness, the good things you do to us, despite the fact that we don't really deserve your grace and your love, but you give it freely anyways. Lord, help me this morning as I try to speak your truth, just to get out of the way and let you say what you want to say. Lord, we love you and we thank you for the fact that you gave us your word, your truth, and it's concrete, it's unchanging, we can rely on it. In your name we pray. Amen. Hopefully everybody's had a good week, and hopefully everybody is ready to learn something, because otherwise why be here, right? Has anybody ever gone through life and faced difficulties? Wow, a lot of people in this room have really easy lives, evidently. I don't know what you've been doing all your lives, but I need to know your secret, because only a few of us raised our hands here. Yeah, we all have hopefully faced difficulties. I'm dropping stuff again just like last time, but we've all faced difficulties, and that's just life. That's part of what comes with life. And the reason for that is we live in a world that isn't perfect, right? This world is not a perfect world anymore. Did God make it perfect? Absolutely. You go back to Genesis 1, Genesis 2, God made the world perfect. It started out that way. Something broke it. We call that something sin. Sin came into the world, it broke the world, and that's actually where I want to start off this morning, is in Genesis 3, verses 16 through 19. And we're going to actually look at kind of the repercussions of man's decision to sin against God and what that looked like. And it says, starting in verse 16, "To the woman he said, I will greatly multiply your pain in childbirth, and in pain you shall bring forth children. Yet your desire shall be for your husband, and he shall rule over you. Then to Adam he said, Because you have listened to the voice of your wife, and have eaten of the tree which I have told you not to eat, saying, Cursed is the ground because of you. In toil you will eat of it all the days of your life. Both thorns and thistles it shall grow for you, and you shall eat of the plants of the field. By the sweat of your face you shall eat bread till you return to the ground, because from it you were taken, and from the dust for dust you are, and to the dust you shall return." So we see kind of this initial sin hit the world and stuff started to fall apart. If you've ever wondered why life can be so difficult, there's your answer. Is that life is difficult because sin broke the perfect order that God had created. If you ever wake up in the morning and you feel like you've been doing this whole 9-to-5 job for the last 20 years of your life, and you're so frustrated with it and you're so worn out and you just don't want to roll out of bed, that's the result of sin. It said right there that we're going to just have to work by the sweat of our brows to get by every single day, and it's going to wear you out day in and day out and day in and day out. And some days you're going to wake up and you're just going to lay there and go, I'm done. Anybody ever been there? Anybody ever just, the alarm clock goes off and you're just like, no, not today. But then you remember, oh wait, the kids need to eat. We got to pay the rent. I got to get out of bed. There's things that have to happen, even though it's just wearing you out. And that's the day-to-day grind and hardship we have to face in this world, because this world is now broken. That wasn't how God originally intended it. It wasn't the original design, but sin, its whole goal, and Satan's whole goal, was to ruin God's intended design for us. That's his whole goal. That's what he wants. He doesn't want to rule the world. He just wants to ruin it for everyone else. And all he has to do to make that happen is to keep you separated from God, and breaking God's creation and design was one of his ways to do that. So your first point is that some hardships in life are just the results of living in a broken world. There's no evil force behind it. Satan's not out there to get you down. It's just the fact that sin has broken the world, And now we're just going to have to deal with that. That's all there is to it. It's not anything maniacal. There's no great scheme behind it. There is no conspiracy. It's just we live in a broken world. And we're just going to have to deal with that, and it's not easy. But thankfully, God's with us, right? God didn't just say, well, you broke the world. Too bad. Deal with it. I'm out. No, He's like, no, I've got a plan. I will fix this. Life will be hard. You'll still go through trials and tribulations, but I'm with you. How many times did He tell the people of Israel when they were going through the desert, do not be afraid, I am with you. Do not be afraid, I am with you. Do not be afraid. They had seen God part the Red Sea. They had seen Him bring the plagues. They had seen Him drop manna from heaven every morning to feed them. They had seen all these miracles, and He kept still needing to tell them every morning, don't be afraid, I'm with you. He's like, I just fed you breakfast, but don't worry, I'm still here. I didn't leave. I am with you. And so if the people of Israel needed that, I'm sure we also need those encouragements too. And one thing to remember is that through this whole process, hardship doesn't just come from the fact that we live in a broken world. You know, a broken world will bring plenty of hardship. A year ago, roughly, in the spring, we had some pretty tough times in the Cookeville area in the form of a tornado. That's part of living in a broken world. You know, we have weather patterns. Weather happens. No one's particularly behind it. It's just weather, but it brings hardship, right? It brought a lot of sorrow for a lot of people and a lot of hurt and a lot of pain. But we work together and we get through it as a family. And we can see in James, God kind of lines out where a second route hardship can kind of enter our life comes from. So we have the broken world issue, but we also have the issue of our own decisions and our own sin nature. Because inside of us, we have two natures. We have the sin nature, which is the part of living in a broken world, and we have that spiritual nature from God, His Spirit living in us. And they're always in conflict. They're always fighting. They're always going back and forth. They're always colliding. Paul talks about it quite a bit. But in James, we see God kind of lays it out this way through James, starting chapter 1, verse 12. He said, "Blessed is a man who perseveres under trial, for once he has been approved, he will receive the crown of life, which the Lord has promised to those who love Him. Let no one say when he is tempted, I am being tempted by God, for God cannot be tempted by evil, and He Himself does not tempt anyone. But each one is tempted when he is carried away and enticed by his own lust. Then when lust has conceived, it gives birth to sin, and when sin is accomplished, it brings forth death. Do not be deceived, my brethren. Every good thing bestowed and every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shifting shadow." And I'm just going to stop there. So, oftentimes, we're kind of our own worst enemy. It's our own sinful desires, our own things that we're bringing to the table that end up becoming problems for us. I had a little funny picture, if you guys can throw that up now. And I don't know how readable it's going to be. I found this one on the internet. It just hits home. So you've got the guy searching for this crystal of ultimate truth. And it says, "At long last I have found it, the crystal which only utters truth." And it says, "Some of your problems are your own fault." Okay, wow, you little jerk. You don't know me. But we do that to God, don't we? Like we'll be in a horrible situation that was completely our own fault. We did it to ourselves. And we'll be like, "God, I need your help." And God will be like, "Well, stop doing that." Well, I don't want to stop doing that. That's why you're here, because you won't stop doing this. Sometimes our problems are our own creation. Sometimes we try to load a dryer into the back of a truck by ourselves and we blow out our bicep. I'm just saying, and men are notorious for that kind of stuff. We hurt ourselves all the time. That's why women live longer. It just is. But we tend to be our own worst enemy sometimes. And sometimes our poor decisions aren't necessarily a moral failing. Blowing out your bicep, trying to do something you shouldn't have been doing. Or if you're a student and you procrastinate until the night before a paper's due, and then you're sitting down at 11 o'clock going, "Oh, I have a 7-page paper due in 4 hours. Woo! I shouldn't have waited." But we do that to ourselves. And sometimes our own hardship we face is our own fault for no necessarily moral failing. And then sometimes we do things we know we shouldn't be doing. We're trying to skirt that line of, well, is this a sin yet? If I get to here, is it a sin now, or do I have to go to here? And we try to walk that line so close, and then we trip and we fall over and we're in a gigantic mess. We should have never even been we should have been like, well, if that's the line, I'm going to be over here where it's safe. But sometimes we do stupid, right? And my wife will tell you sometimes I do stupid, and she's just like, please don't do that. Sometimes you think it's a good idea to help your cat get to know the friendly neighborhood cat, and you feel like holding it while they're about to fight is the best idea, and then it bites really hard on your hand, and you have an infection. And anyways, I do stupid things too. John's not the only one. But sometimes our hardships are the results of our own poor decisions. And that's kind of my second point I want to get at, is that some hardships in life are the results of our own sinful acts, either our own or others. Sometimes somebody else does something they shouldn't have done, and that has a negative impact on our life. A few months back, we had a guy trying to evade police officers going through Cookeville in a police chase and collided with a young mother and her 2 children in the car, killed all 3 of them, and orphaned the 3rd child, who's now going to live with grandparents. So sometimes other people's sinful decisions have very big consequences on our lives. So it's not always our own fault, sorry. As a parent, that kind of thing just very quickly gets to me. Didn't when I was younger and didn't have kids, but now hearing things like that just really hits me straight to the core. And so we reap what we sow. Galatians 6, 1, through 10 talks about this idea of reaping what we sow. And it says, brethren, even if a man is caught in a trespass, you who are spiritual restore such a one in a spirit of gentleness, each one looking to yourself, lest you too be tempted. Bear one another's burdens, thus fulfill the law of Christ. What law is he talking about there? The law that we're to love one another as we love ourselves. For if anyone thinks that he is something when he is nothing, he deceives himself. But let each one examine his own work, and then he will have a reason for boasting in regard to himself alone, and not in regard to another. For each one shall bear his own load. And let one who is taught the word share all good things with him who teaches. Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. For whatever a man sows, this he will also reap. For the one who sows of his own flesh shall reap from the flesh and reap corruption. But the one who sows to the Spirit shall from the Spirit reap eternal life. And let us not lose heart in doing good, for in due time we shall reap if we do not grow weary. So then while we have an opportunity, let us do good to all men, and especially to those who are of the household of the faith. So we read in James where we're being told to persevere. Now we're being told to continue to do good even when it's tough, because we're reaping and we're sowing what we reap. And so if we are out there sowing good, hopefully we'll reap a harvest of good, even in that hardship. And it's not always easy to wake up and go, I've got another really tough day ahead of me, but I need to be doing the right things. Sometimes we wake up and we have a really tough day ahead of us and we want to go, I don't even want to deal with this today. But we have to keep pushing forward. And that's where we bear each other's burdens. Hopefully you've got a good friend who on those tough days when you wake up and you say, I don't want to deal with this, you can call your friend and say, I need help. Can we meet for coffee before I have to go into work today because I need some encouragement? And hopefully that friend will say, absolutely, where can I meet you? So you don't have to do this alone. Why are we a body? Because a body is not just one entity trying to do it all by themselves. A body is a collective of different organs working together as a singular unit. You don't have to do this alone. If you feel like you have to be isolated within the church, that's a lie. Please stop believing it. That's not how God intended this to work. You are a part of a body, and we support each other. So please don't feel like as you're facing hardships that you have to face them alone. So avoid making any unnecessary hardship for yourself, and when you do encounter hardship, work with those around you to overcome it. Don't be some Lone Ranger Christian. The last thing I want to talk about this morning and really want to focus in on, there's a great story in the Bible of Jesus speaking directly about hardship and what it's all about. And we can find that in John chapter 9. And this is to me probably one of the best things we should keep in mind when we encounter hardship, because Jesus took the whole issue and just flipped it on its head. And anytime Jesus does something like that, I always tell people, pay attention. I always tell myself, pay attention. Jesus took what everybody else thought, and he said, that's completely wrong. This is what it actually is. At which point we should take notes. We should circle this. We should underline this several times, and we should say, here's how the world tends to think about this. Jesus punted it as far as he possibly could. What did Jesus then say? That's what I need to keep in mind, because I don't want to fall into that again. They're walking through this town, and it says, starting in chapter 9, verse 1, and as he, Jesus, passed by, he saw a man born blind from birth, and his disciples. Now, these are the guys who have been following Jesus around this whole time, learning and growing from him. They have this question that just, we need to learn from this. And it says, they asked him saying, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he should be born blind? Their focus was, here's a blind guy, and he's blind because somebody messed up. Was it him or his parents? Now, he was born blind. Who's going to be like, yeah, my baby before it exited the womb messed up big, and that's why it was born blind? That's ridiculous. Or the fact that, oh, well, my parents messed up, so God smote me with blindness. Well, that doesn't make sense either, which is why Jesus turns around and goes, time out. What? No. And so Jesus is going to correct their thinking. And very clearly says, it's started in the next verse, it was neither that this man sinned, nor his parents, but it was in order that the works of God might be displayed in him. We must work the works of him who sent me. As long as it is day, night is coming when no man can work. Jesus looked at them and said, guys, you are missing it. You are so off base, you're not even the right zip code. This man wasn't born blind because somebody messed up, somebody sinned, somebody did something horrible. He was born blind because we live in a broken world, but God is going to do some amazing things in his life that's going to display his glory for everyone to see. Who would like to take the hardships in their life and be able to raise them up to God and say, do something really cool with this? It's killing me, but you can turn it around and turn it into something that will bring glory to your kingdom, that will help people come to know you love them and you want to do amazing things in their lives. It will heal the broken, it will heal the hurting, and it will build your kingdom on this earth. Who would like to take those things that are weighing you down and turn them around into something that will lift other people up? Anyone? Maybe? Yeah, I hope all of us want to do that, because all of us have hardship. All of us have problems. All of us are dealing with things, whether that's sickness, disease, an injury, a past issue with employment. All kinds of things can happen in this life that will be difficulties. There will be trials you have to go through, issues in your marriage, whatever the case may be. God wants to take those things and use them for his glory if we let him. If we let him. Now remember, God is a very patient, loving God. He gave you a free will, and he's not going to take that away from you and force you to do anything. Because if he takes away your free will, God made us why? So that we could have a loving relation with him, a loving relationship with him. Can you love someone if they have no free will, if they have no choice in the matter? Is it love? Absolutely not. It'd be like saying, I love my toaster. My toaster has no free will. Yes, it makes great toast, but it has no free will. It cannot love me. It's a toaster. So if God takes away our free will, we're really just robots at that point. And you can't have a loving relationship with a robot. You know, you can't pull your phone out and be like, Siri, I love you. Siri's going to be like, I don't know what love is. You're weird. So I'm a phone. You know, you can't love your phone. Some people are laughing. I'm glad somebody caught that. So what Jesus then does, and I'll give you kind of the short version, then we'll jump to the end, is that he makes some mud, he puts it on the guy's eye, and then he tells him, you have a choice. You can go and wash in this pool on the other side of town, and you'll regain your sight, or you can sit here and do nothing. He gives him a choice, and the man chooses to go wash in the pool. I mean, after all, if Jesus is telling you to do something, you should probably do it, right? And he regains his sight. Well, now remember, this guy was born blind, and he's not a kid anymore. Everybody in town knows who he is. He's the local town blind guy. That's kind of what he's known for. And now he's not the local town blind guy anymore. Kind of causes a little bit of a stir. You know, it'd be like if you have a friend who's only got one leg and you see him and he's got two legs all of a sudden, you're going to be like, you've been working out? What's going on? Something's different, right? It's going to jump out at you a little bit. When you see Bob going down the street, like, Bob's driving. Bob's blind. Bob shouldn't be driving. Why is Bob driving? because Bob's not blind anymore. That's kind of a big deal. And it ends up causing this stir. The Pharisees get all upset. They're like, wait. What happened? Why is he not blind anymore? Well, Jesus healed him. When did he heal him? On the Sabbath. Oh, he did something good on the Sabbath. And they got all legalistic about it. So then they go to the man's parents and they're like, hey, who healed your son? They're like, whoa, time out. We don't want to be in this fight. He's of age. Go talk to him. And the parents kind of pushed it off like, go talk to him. And they threw their son under the bus. Great job, parents. But it's true. He was of age. So then they go to him and they start trying to pick a fight with him, trying to convince him that Jesus is evil. And that's where we're going to kind of jump back into the story here. Pick it back up around verse 28. And we see him having this conversation with these very legalistic Pharisees. And it says starting in 28, and they reviled him and said, you are his disciple, but we are disciples of Moses. We know that God has spoken to Moses. But as for this man, we do not know where this man is from. So they're just like, I don't know what happened to you. I don't know why you're not blind anymore. But this man, no, he can't be from God. We know Moses was from God because God's talked with Moses, but we don't know about this guy. And it says, the man answered and said to them, well, here is an amazing thing, that you do not know where he is from, and yet he opened my eyes. We know that God does not hear sinners, but if anyone is God-fearing and does his will, he hears him. Since the beginning of time, it has never been heard that anyone opened the eyes of a blind person. If this man were not from God, he could do nothing. And they answered and said to him, you were born entirely in sins. Are you teaching us? And they put him out. So we see this hardness of heart in the Pharisees, that this man makes his case that Jesus was from God, and they wouldn't hear it. Even though he really states a great case. And then he leaves, and Jesus meets up with him. We see in verse 35, it says, Jesus heard that they had put him out. And finding him, he said, do you believe in the Son of Man? And he answered and said, and who is he, Lord, that I may believe in him? Now remember, he didn't see Jesus. He never actually saw Jesus' face. So he doesn't realize right now that he's talking to the guy that healed him, because he was blind at the point he put the mud on, and then he left to go wash in the pool, and Jesus didn't go with him. And Jesus said to him, you have both seen him, and he is the one talking with you. And he said to him, Lord, I believe. And he worshiped him. So all this hardship, this man has gone through his entire life blind, has now culminated in a moment where he has met the King of Kings and Lord of Lords and has been completely changed. Not only his eyes, but his heart has been completely changed through this hardship. And I guarantee you that guy did not just go, great, I know Jesus now, I'm going to go sit back on the couch and relax. I guarantee you everyone he met from that day on, whether they wanted to hear about Jesus or not, heard about Jesus. And you know why? Because he wasn't blind anymore. And he could actually talk to people and go about the town and do things. His life was completely changed. And he was going to let everybody know how and why that happened and what he believed now and how that was continuing to change him. He didn't let his hardship destroy him. Remember, when he was talking to the Pharisees, he said that God hears those who call out to him. So even in his hardship, this guy was still praying for a miracle. He didn't give up, which I believe is one of the reasons why Jesus sought him out. He didn't seek Jesus out. Jesus sought him out. Jesus knew when he went to that town that day who he was going to talk to and who he was going to heal and why. So don't give up. Persevere through the hardship. Our final point I want to really hit home to you guys is that no matter the hardships we face, God is still in control. No matter the hardships we face, God is still in control. And really we should add to that, no matter the outcomes of the hardship we face, God is still in control. Because sometimes we get an outcome that we don't understand and we didn't want. We were praying for something else, and that's not what happened. And we won't know the big picture for all of those things. We won't understand why things play out the way they do sometimes until we get to heaven and we can actually sit down with God and be like, God, why didn't you heal this person that we were all praying for, that we all loved? Why did they go home when they went home? And we won't have those answers sometimes until we get to the other side. But we can rest knowing that in all of that, God is at work. He has a plan. He's still in control, and He wants to bring glory to Himself out of that and bring people to Him into a relationship with Him, because that's the whole point of why we're still here on the earth. People will say, well, if God saved everybody, why doesn't He just take us all home now? Because there's still people who don't know about Him, who need to know about Him. And that's why we're still here. Because He wants us to continue to spread that good news, to spread the gospel. Before He left, the Great Commission was to go out into all the world and make disciples. Why? Because Jesus wants everybody in heaven. Remember what I said at the beginning? Satan just wanted to keep everybody away from God. He just wanted to break everything. His whole ultimate plan is just to keep as many people away from God as humanly possible. Our job as followers of Christ is to get as many people to God as possible. That's how we're at odds with Him. So let your hardships become a beacon of light in the darkness. Let God use them to draw people to Himself, because He's in control regardless of the outcomes. He's in control. And He wants to draw all of us closer to Himself, especially those, though, who don't know Him yet. A lot of Jesus' parables He taught about were about finding lost things, because He had a broken heart for the lost. He talks about leaving the 99 sheep to go find the one that's missing. If that's you this morning, if you don't know who He is, if you don't have a relationship with Him yet, maybe the Spirit's been convicting you, maybe you've heard this enough and you've just finally at a point where you go, okay, I want to know more. Please find somebody this morning to talk to about that, whether myself, whether John, or any of the members of the River here. Just please find someone to talk to this morning, because there's no reason to wait on that decision. There's no reason to delay that. It's not going to get any better if you wait till tomorrow to get to know Jesus better today. All right? Nothing's going to change. It's going to make it any better a day tomorrow to know Jesus than it is today. Thank you for listening. I hope you guys got something out of this. I hope you learned something. I hope that this encouraged you in some way, regardless of where you're at this morning. Thank you.